Hi there and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a B-movie review. Today we'll be having a look at Vampire Resurrection, or Song of the Vampire as it's known in the US. So this marks the directorial debut of Scream Queen Denice Duff. Now she both stars and directs this film, and also she co-produces it as well. So it's obviously a bit of a passion project for her, and essentially it is a it's the best way I've heard it described is a vampire film made for women by women. So it's essentially a love story at its core. It tells a story of essentially a love triangle. A woman is slain while she's in the embrace of true love by another man. This other man decides he can't live without her. This is obviously 100 years ago or so. And makes a deal with like a voodoo priestess to sort of like be reunited with his lost love, and she says to him, right, you've basically got to die, and in 100 years time you'll kind of be resurrected, and then you'll be with your true love forever. Cut to the future, and we see Denice Duff's character basically, and she's having strange dreams. Now she's actually meant to be like a reincarnation of this woman from the past. And she's having strange dreams, and lo and behold, it's 100 years later, and so this guy, vampire, he's a vampire now, he pops back up and decides he wants to go after his long lost love. And it's essentially, it's really a love story. Throw into the mix, you've got her sort of Denice Duff's character's sort of abusive husband, who is also the same sort of guy who murdered her in the past. So it's really it is really a love story at its core. Now, despite the cover, I would say this is a love story first and a horror film second. Now, as I say, it does mark the directorial debut of Denice Duff, and it's fairly poorly shot, to be honest with you. You'll see the boom mic dip into shot about 10-12 times throughout the course of this film, so there are some kind of like some it was poorly edited, and obviously these things I don't know how they got past the editing room, to be honest with you. And the acting is very sort of patchy. Denice Duff isn't too bad, to be fair, but she's she's a fairly experienced scream queen, but the rest of the cast are really bad in delivering some of their lines. It's not a pleasant film. It's not a fun film to watch. It's kind of very plodding. Now, if you kind of like your sort of romantic films, now obviously I guess the big one you would say is Twilight. That's kind of your romantic films and all that. But this was obviously a very low budget. Now, it was made in 2001, but a lot of these films I think look older than they actually are. So this was only just over 10 years old from when I'm reviewing it now, but it looks like it's made in the 90s, in early to mid 90s. So it really doesn't look all that good. And I think the people who were into Twilight and stuff now, even though realistically the first Twilight probably wasn't made all that long after this one, it kind of I just don't think you would have that crossover appeal unless you're like really, really into your vampires. Despite Twilight, if that makes sense. It's a fairly slow sort of film. It kind of plods along. There are some sort of gore moments, and I kind of quite like the vampire makeup. If I'm quite honest, I think the guy who plays like the main vampire, he looks fairly decent. Now, Denice Duff, as I say, she works a lot for Full Moon, and I think that influence is apparent whilst watching this film. So it does have some fairly kind of nice sort of gothic-y overtones that are in places. So that there are some plus points if you can kind of overlook the sort of major amateurish sort of nature of this film. But to be quite honest with you, as a piece on its own, there's a lot of vampire films out there, and they more and more so these days. So I don't think this one's an entirely sort of memorable one. I guess the nearest film like it is probably The Vampire Journals, which was a Full Moon, production, but that's a far superior film in my estimation. So this particular one, I'll have to give it a 4 out of 10. You're only going to really want to watch it if you're a real vampire fanatic or fangnatic who basically is a completionist and really wants to see every single sort of vampire film you can. But for the casual horror movie fan, or if you're interested in the sort of like the Twilight type films, I honestly don't think you'd be interested in this film, because it's just a little bit too sort of low hanging fruit, if you know what I mean. There's some attractive women in it and blah de blah, but to be honest with you, it's not enough to save this film. Anyway, have you seen it? Leave me a comment and look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.